All right. Are we ready?
We're ready. Octogenarian does technology. Okay, good.
All right. This is Karissa Pudder with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. I'm here virtually on February 8th, 2024 to interview Susan Berg for the SPOHP Internship Oral History Project. So I'd just like to start and thank Sue for joining me today to talk to me and share the story. She has plenty of them to tell. So just to start off, could you just give us your name and the spelling of your name for the record?
Sure. And thank you for this opportunity, I think. My name is Susan Berg. Usually I'm called Sue Berg, all one word. And what else?
Could you give me the spelling of your name, please?
Oh, sure. First name is Susan, and last name is Berg.
All right, thank you so much. So, Sue, let's just start with some introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Oh, my. Uh, Yes. Oh, introduction. So, you have my name, and I live in St. Augustine. Most of my life was spent in Hawaii, mostly on Oahu, a little bit on Maui, and I'm being interviewed today.
All right, perfect. So, let's just start with the basic questions. When and where were you born?
Okay. I was born in New Jersey, in Jersey City, New Jersey. Wow. On November 30th, 1942. The family story is my mother left the Thanksgiving table to have me.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, to jump off with family, can you tell us a little more about your family background and what it was like growing up where you did?
Okay. I grew up in a town called Kearney, New Jersey. I was one of two siblings. Yeah. And my parents had lived in the same town like forever. And my mother's background was Scottish, so on both sides of her family. And my father's background is English and Polish Jewish, Jewish Polish. So I grew up in a mixed family of those days.
Hmm.
Went to grade school there, went to high school there, and then it was college time.
All
And back
right.
in those days, women were given basically two choices. Would you like to be a nurse or would you like to be a teacher? And because I don't do well in the medical world, I'm a teacher. So I went to school to be college to be a teacher. I went to school in Pennsylvania. It's now called Arcadia University. Back in the day, it was a girls' school. Now it's a co-ed, relatively good-sized university, and I think of some standing. So that's basically my kingdom. I fell in love at a very young age, very, very, way too young. Don't do it. Uh, and 6 days after I graduated from college, I was married.
All right. Well, let's talk about college then. So you said that you went to what was an all girls school at the time.
Mhm.
You tell me more about what that experience was like, what the school was structured like.
Yeah, it was in Pennsylvania. It is in Pennsylvania. Um, I don't know if I was there for an education. and now at my point in life, I really appreciate education. I'm not too sure if I appreciated it when I was a young person. But anyway, it was a girls' school. And very recently, in this time zone, I've had a reunion with five of my classmates whom I hadn't seen in 50 years, which was kind of like a magical thing because we all went to school together, played bridge. You know, we did the important things. Uh, and now we're reunited after 50 years, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. So my college years were fine. I don't think I had a high level of appreciation of really what I was doing in college. I do now.
So reflecting on how you quote unquote appreciated college at the time when you were in school, what kind of things were you doing? What kind of classes did you take?
My majors were education and art history.
Mhm.
So at that point, it being a girls' school, we were educated in all things. So we had a liberal arts degree, liberal arts education. So, history and geography. One of the things that did fascinate me and still does is comparative religions. I really took to that really well. I've always been interested in religions, how they're expressed, different belief systems, and how they're very much similar. So that was a good part of it. As far as being trained to be a teacher, we did our student teaching, and then after college, I went into teaching.
Awesome. So you mentioned earlier about the limited choices for
Yes,
women in the work field at that time between
yes.
nursing and teaching, and you chose teaching. Once you got into the field, did you find yourself enjoying it? Do you have any fond memories of your time?
Oh, totally, totally. I was a very excellent teacher. I really was. I was teaching second grade, and I'm married by now. I'm teaching second grade, and I love it, and I love the kids, and we had a lot of fun, and we learned a lot of, you know, liberal arts kind of things. We had a very good time. And yeah, and then it was time for babies, my own babies. And one of my youngest son, I have two sons. My youngest son is named after one of my early students.
Oh,
So he's Matthew. And the boy that was in class, the family was so nice and the kids were so lovely. The name really impressed me. So that's why my youngest son, I don't even know if he knows that, was named for one of my students. Yeah. And then there was a big change. My husband at the time, I thought he was on a particular path, and I knew what that path was, or at least in my mind. And he decided not to be on that path and to be a teacher also. So with that came significant changes in my own life. A move, still in New Jersey, but a move to the country. I'm not a city girl, but I'm a town girl, right? So I was used to town and, sidewalks and buses and things like that. And we moved really into the country. So that was a big switch, for a very big switch, which I wasn't happy with.
and moving into the country, where were y'all moving to exactly?
Still in New Jersey, Western New Jersey. Is it rural now? This one area is rural. Yeah.
And around what year was that when y'all made the move?
That was around 69.
Are and so it was a big change for you that can you describe more about how that affected your career as a teacher and some of the effects?
Eventually, when the boys got to be preschool age, I went back to school and I went back to teaching first preschool and then second grade. So I got back on my path, of teaching and totally enjoying it, totally enjoying it. And the boys, we had arrangements for them to get picked up and stuff like that. So that worked out well.
Amazing. Well, I'd like to circle back to how you met your husband at the time. You mentioned that you married very quickly after you graduated college. Can you tell me a little more about how you met, your relationship in the early years?
Is this being recorded? Oh my. Um, Now I'm young. This is the 50s. Women are expected not only to be a nurse or a teacher, they're also expected to marry immediately after college. Those are, nobody says this to you, but I think those were the expectations, and for my classmates as well. Um, for the Jewish girls, it was to find a doctor. Oh my goodness, I don't know if that, we might eliminate all of that.
I can make a note of it.
Yeah. So there
But
were
you
expectations.
speak freely.
There were expectations that we get married and have children, and have a career. And these are the exact words that you could fall back on. Those were the words I was given. Have a career that you can fall back on. Never really knew what that meant, but if things didn't go right, then you had a career to fall back on. And by God, that's what happened. So yeah, so I met Jack. People from New Jersey go down the shore, which means you go to the beach. You can always tell a New Jersey person if they say down the shore. But anyway, and I was 16, and important things were how you looked and convertibles. And he had both of them. And I was telling somebody that the other day, and they said, "Oh, it's good you weren't shallow." Oh, well, I was 16, right? Now, I don't know if I want my children knowing that. But anyway, we just stayed together. I had other opportunities for, quote unquote, marriage. My husband had a sister, an older sister, and I wanted to be her, which is kind of weird. So she had the life that I wanted. So I thought, if I married him, then I get the life I wanted. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I want all of this. Okay, we'll see. We might do some editing on this.
Do you need to take a pause, or are we good to
No, I'm
continue?
okay. I want to get out of this period.
All right. Well, I'd like to circle back to something. So you had mentioned before that on your father's side, there was Jewish ancestry. Now, as far as practicing the religion, was that something prominent in the household?
For my mother, yes. Yes. Yes, she did practice her religion. And my mother was also, I'm going to use the word eclectic. I'm not sure if that's the right word. She liked all the religions that she knew of. So we
Really?
had tokens of this religion and that religion in the home, even though she only practiced her own religion. And we were encouraged, we were told as kids to go to Sunday school and church and things like that. My father's religious side wasn't there, so my mother could control it.
Very interesting. Do you feel like that arrangement in your household influenced your future interests in comparative
I
religion?
think so. I do think so. Looking back in retrospect, again, at my mother's acceptance and appreciation of all belief systems. Yeah. Um, and I also had that interest in other religious backgrounds. So, yes, it did. And that continues to today. My grandson, my oldest grandson, is studying religions in college, and we have great conversations now. So, and he is very accepting of this and that, and very interested in all of. So the symbolism of religions, the beliefs in different religions, the practices. I'm very interested, fascinated by it.
Amazing. All
And
right.
I don't this and accepting of other people's ideas.
Wonderful. All right. Now I'd like to move to the topic of the hour. You have mentioned earlier that you spent a majority of your life in Hawaii. So
Correct.
I'd like to move some of the questions that way. So can
Okay.
you talk more about what led to your decision to move there and more of your
Yeah,
time in the islands?
I'm pretty clear on that. I'm very clear on that. Um, I was single at this point in the history. I had two children. We owned a house. It was called tenured. I don't know if teachers are tenured anymore. I was tenured teacher, so I had that, you know, secure. So I had all of these security things in place, and yet I had a horizon thing. What's on the horizon? How are different people that are different than I am? How are they? Um, so a friend and I went to Europe together, kind of looking, like what's up in the rest of the world. We didn't stray too far from our roots. We went to England and Scotland, England and Ireland and Wales. Um, it was so cold there. Oh my goodness. And it was August. It was so cold. And the people in Wales, who were lovely, absolutely lovely, um, they went to the beach in the rain, and it's like, ew. so, but we did have a lovely time in Wales, and in Ireland and in England. Came home, no, not the right place, not the right place. Still looking, still looking. And this is a process over a couple few years. There was a man in my life who wanted to get married. No, I don't think so. Um, so I kind of traded security for the unknown very consciously, very consciously. Um, in the coincidence department, a friend of mine from high school, a Japanese boy at that point, called and said, if you ever want to come to Hawaii, just let me know, you and your kids. Well, some decisions are quite easy to make, if you ever want to come visit. And I was a teacher. That meant I had the summers off in those days. And Matthew, my youngest, and I went to Hawaii to visit my high school friend. And when I got to Maui, a lot of it felt very familiar to me. And plus, culturally, there is such diversity there. And I wanted that diverse environment, yet having the American, systems in place, the money and the language and all of that. So came home from Hawaii, because we're just doing a visit at first. Consciously walked around the house with two things in my hand: my insurance policy for the house, security, right? My passport. Who knows? And consciously balanced them out to see which I had security, and I also had opportunity, and very consciously made the choice, kind of a now or never thing, to pack it in and see what life was like in another place. It was brave. Maybe it was stupid. It opened so many doors for both Matthew and me. My oldest son chose to stay with his father in New Jersey, and they kind of have the same personalities of, staying in the same place. And I don't know if you know the King and I. It was a play and then a movie, maybe in the 60s. And there's a song, and the story is the woman and her son go to Siam. She goes to teach the children in Siam rather. And they sing a song, whenever I feel afraid, I hold my head erect and whistle a happy tune. Matthew and I sang that at the airport when we left for Hawaii because we didn't really know what life was there. So we both fared quite well. Matthew had his challenges. I had mine too, but they weren't the same as his. It's a multicultural environment, you know, and all cultures have difficulties interacting at times. Yeah.
Let's
So,
talk what it was like after the move.
I'm sorry.
And let's talk about what it was like after the move. Once you've,
Oh,
what was it like
there's
getting at the
there's
community?
something that leads up to the move, which is kind of strange. I made that conscious decision, passport, insurance papers, and I'm getting rid of stuff and putting things in order. And my brother called me. Well, I have a younger brother, or I had a younger brother. And Ken said, "Oh, I'm going to come with you." Now, my thinking on that is, oh my God, now I'm responsible for him. I mean, he wasn't a baby or anything. Okay, so now Ken is coming to Maui. We're going to Maui. And then a short time after that, my sister-in-law, my former husband's youngest sister, called and said, "Oh, we're coming with you." So now I have my brother-in-law from my former marriage, my sister-in-law from and my brother. It's like, oh my God. My sister-in-law was pregnant. So there's another one coming. Eventually, my mother-in-law moved to Maui. And my husband's cousin and her husband moved to Maui. So I had this tribe that just followed me. I don't know if they followed me, but they all ended up on Maui. So that was good. Life in Hawaii at first, there's language, even though we're all speaking English mostly. There's language differences, there's cultural differences, there's food differences. The practices are different. I mean, it's beautiful and it's lovely and all of that, but there's all this stuff to learn. Oh my goodness. So I took to the, oh, okay. I don't know, again, consciously, but I'm fascinated with the different cultures, be it Hawaiian or Chinese or Japanese or Filipino, and had good exposure to all of that. Matthew was about 12 at that point, and he took to surfing. So he still considers himself a surfer. Yeah. Life went on, and literally, and I had to be employed. In my Maui employment, I had a supervisor from Oahu. That's the main place. Who supervised, monitored, that was the word, monitored my program. And he said to me, "Oh, are you going to apply for the statewide job?" So in this field, which was called literacy, there was a job coming up. And I said, "Oh, no, Hartwell. No, I'm not applying for that." He said, "Well, think about it. If you change your mind, I will support you in that, getting that job." It was a pretty good level, very good level job. And again, there's another decision to be made. We're switching islands, right? So the decision was made that I would apply for the job in the governor's office. And again, I'm just working in private nonprofits. I'm not way up there. But to apply for the governor's office job, which I did, that opened like a zillion doors because I didn't know about legislation or the legislative process or the language of government. Didn't know that one at all. So that opened a whole bunch of other doors. I did move to Oahu in order to fulfill that one. Yeah. And then worked for about 12 years in state government. My first job was in the governor's office, and I was the first lady's chief of staff. So we worked together. We are still friends. And back in those days, there wasn't something called transparency in government. It was okay. So, we had limousines and drivers and things like that. And from that position, it expanded first into continental United States. So we had relationships and program partnerships in a number of states in Washington, D.C. So this meant travel to different places. And concurrently, there's Japan and Italy. So I'm traveling, which satisfies me. Yeah. The governor was very supportive of our programs. Yeah. So I'm still in touch with the first lady. She's a friend now. I still defer to her. Oh, in fact, this is her scarf. Oh my goodness. Hi, Lynn. So there's still communications between us. And what she will do, governor is still active. What she'll do is we'll be talking on the phone and governor will come into the room. She'll say, "Oh, John, this is Sue Berg. Say hello to her." Now, governor has no interest in me whatsoever. Oh, hi, Sue. Oh, hi, governor. How are you? Anyway, working in the governor's office led to working in the next governor's office, which led to working in the next governor's office. And then I think there were 5 altogether. Yeah. So
So you're continuing to work in the governor's office for Hawaii. You didn't switch states, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. But we had partnerships with Wyoming and Georgia, Colorado.
Wonderful. Well, then.
And I think this is important, again, in the perspective I'm in now. I'm still in touch with not everyone, that's for sure, because there's just too many. But I'm still in touch with people who were part of these different phases of my life. Am I the one that activates those connections? Sometimes, yes. I think it's very important to do that.
Wonderful.
At least for me. Yeah. So most of my afternoons, not all of them, but most of my afternoons are, phone calls with Hawaii. And sometimes I activate them and sometimes they're activated by others. They're on different time zones. But we have some excellent memories. Again, it's an individual thing.
Are there any kind of distinct memories that come to mind that you really share with a lot of the people that you've met in your time from living in Hawaii?
Tell me that one again.
Are there any distinct memories that come to mind that are like a focal point of the friendships that you created while in Hawaii?
Well, I'll tell you how it is now. So there's different parts of Hawaii time. I worked in a number of different museums also. So there are friends from this museum, friends from that museum. Some of them overlap, but most of them don't. Still to this day, we will examine our memories. And for me, visually, what it's like is like having a treasure box, right, with a rounded top. And then you open the treasure box, you take out the memory, which is, a gemstone or something. And we examine those memories not from a critical point, but we go over those memories. And then 2 months later, we go over them again. Oh, remember? And oh, yeah, and she had the thing on, and she said that to her, um, and it's just like looking at beautiful gems all over again. And there's different gems for different periods and different people. So, yeah, um, the it, and somebody said that to me years ago. You know what we're doing? That we had programs for women um, under the governor for women who really didn't have too many experiences. I mean, we're talking never leave the town. Um, and programmatically, they had other experiences. And one of the teachers said to me, "Oh, what we're doing is creating memories." And I thought, huh, that was kind of a new thought, but our memories are, and helping others to have bigger memories, to have various memories. Yeah, I hope that made sense.
I think it did.
So we still examine memories. Some of my people are getting kind of old. They're getting kind of forgetful about what we did talk about, which is lovely. And then we can talk about them all over again. Yeah. So, yeah, still very, very, very strong. Do I consider Hawaii my home? Yes, I do. I think of all the things that were an influence. My time in Hawaii was extremely significant. And then Hawaii led to Morocco, which is weird because they're on different sides of the world. Uh, so Hawaii just opened the Japanese door, South Pacific door, the Morocco door, on and on and on. And then there's people connected with each of those locations, of course.
Well, then let's take a peek inside those doors, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. So you mentioned how living in Hawaii opened up a lot of the doors to your,
International.
right? You mentioned a very international place.
Yes.
You elaborate on some of the events that transpired that led to you going abroad?
Oh my goodness, there's so many gems to look at. Where are we going to go with this one?
Your
Wow. Oh my. Oh my. I've just, dived into the treasure box of memories. So it's really hard to sort out from there. Um, I'm not saying this is the most important, but it's the one that seems to come to the surface is the connection with Morocco. Um, Talk about different. Oh my goodness. I hope I can be clear on this story. A friend of mine in Hawaii was doing a program, and what the program was called the World Youth Congress. What the program consisted of, this is 1999, and what the program consisted of is inviting 750 kids from all over the world, young people, to come to Hawaii and interact, do things together. It was a very difficult, difficult project because these kids were homestays, and there were venue changes all the time. It was very complex. The person who was running the program is a very good friend of mine still yet. And I didn't go near the program. It was just too convoluted for me and fraught with God knows what, because the kids didn't speak, most of them didn't speak English. Okay, so we have our little international thing going on. Morocco sent a delegation. Now, in Morocco's time frame, this is before the Arab Spring uprisings in different countries in that neighborhood. And the king is relatively young, maybe in his 30s someplace. And he wants to avoid this at all. So he is putting resources into the young people of Morocco. Anyway, World Congress in Hawaii, Morocco steps forward and says, oh, we'll do the next one. Again, I'm not part of this. This is not my baby, right? My friend then asks me to help out with Moroccan planning. Anyway, I helped out with Moroccan planning. Got stuck with some Moroccans who didn't speak English. And I was concerned about, I had a luncheon and all this other stuff. And I called the first lady, who now is a friend of mine, right? And I said, Lynn, I said, I have these Moroccans. I said, can you come for lunch on Monday? Oh, yes. Yeah, she's very agreeable and very gracious. And then I have another friend who I've dragged through all of these projects, a fellow, and Frank, I have these Moroccans. Can you come for lunch? Yes. Anyway, one thing leads to another, and Frank and Lynn and I are invited to Morocco. Frank couldn't go because he was off in Bangladesh or someplace. But Lynn and I went to Morocco together. Now, she has status in Morocco. They're very status conscious, class conscious. I don't have status, but I'm with her. So I have status, which means we get a driver and a translator while we're there. And that just led to other things in Morocco, not with Lynn. Lynn did the one, but that was it. I made a friend in Morocco who worked for the prime minister, and then we started doing projects together. So this is a whole other conversation. Do you know what peace polls are? Peace?
No.
It's an international program, and you can Google it later. What happens in these programs, there are literally poles. They're about 9 feet tall. They're squared off usually. And in different languages, what it says, may peace prevail on earth. So it might be in Japanese and English and Hawaiian and Arabic and whatever. And you can kind of get a hold of these peace polls. Anyway, we started doing peace polls in Morocco. And I think we have 4 of them there now.
Where would the peace polls be placed? Like in major cities, or what was their?
It's really up to the individuals doing the peace poll. It's an international program. They do have website. They still are very active. It was started by a Japanese man after the Second World War because, the Second World War was not good in Japan. And he desired peace on earth. And so, so different, I think I'm going off track. I'm going to use the word planted. They're actually put in the ground in cement. They're on college campuses. I did one at my church on Maui. We did 3 in the desert area of Morocco, 1 in the city park. I tried to get one at the oldest house. And this was years ago before, we've had so much trouble with wars. And I really tried to get, and I researched the languages, that might be spoken or guests that come in. But it didn't fly. So anyway, please examine peace polls, and then if anyone in your class or whatever, I know the person who's still in charge of it. Again, it's international. I think it's based in San Francisco now. Not sure about that. But they have programs all over the world, all over the world, and it's dedicated to let there be peace on earth.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I still, there's still part of me that would like to plant one here, but this is a historic museum. So anyway, and they have other priorities.
Well, we are definitely going to be circling back to the oldest house soon, but I want to dive a little more into Morocco.
Okay.
So a few different people. You mentioned going with Lynn and then meeting another friend that worked with the prime minister. Let's just talk the first arrival.
Advisor.
Advisor to the prime minister. Correct. All right. Let's talk about the first arrival. Can you share any memories that you have from first arriving?
It's a very long flight. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Because you're going from Hawaii to the West Coast to the East Coast to Morocco. It's a very long flight. And all you want to do is take a bath and go to bed. And we were, what was it called? We were under the patronage of His Royal Highness, King Mohammed VI. He's the King of Morocco. So we're under the patronage, which means eyes are on us, right? We're going to be protected. This is when the Arab Spring is just starting to perk, just a little bit. So an incident with an American in a country in this region would be really bad news for everybody concerned. So eyes are on us, and plus, we're given support things like translators and stuff. Lynn, again, is at a higher level. So her meetings, which are my meetings, are at a very high level. The high level in Morocco operates under different rules than the regular folks. This is where I become interested in their art and their architecture. I don't understand it. I don't know it, but it's very pleasing. And this probably has that religious iconic, the icons probably has some connection there. I really love it, but somebody needs to tell me what's happening here with the art and architecture. Yeah, that leads to something else on Oahu later on. But yeah, so we always stayed at a very lovely hotel. Again, the art and the architecture is all over the place. One of the rules in Morocco being that you can't have pictures of, like me or your wife or your husband or something. You can only have pictures of the king. So there's different rules, right? There's just different rules that apply. There's a class structure, which Hawaii is not aware of. We don't know, with respect, we know there's a structure, but Morocco is like really strict on that kind of stuff. The food is different. The smells are different. Everything's different. And your brain is trying to make sense out of it, right? Yeah. So Lynn and I had a very fine time. Again, she's on a higher level, so she can ask for things, which I can't ask for. One of the Arab words, inshallah, and that means if God is willing. You can do this, inshallah. Well, that means we don't know if you're going to do this or not. It depends on camel traffic or whatever. Yeah. So it just was it overwhelming? I was glad to get back to the United States because I felt more order here. We get in line. there wasn't, there's a certain level, there was a certain level for me of chaos, not in the art, not in the architecture, not in the religious practices, but if you're on the street, there's just, it's a little overwhelming. But we had lots of good experiences and all of that. And then one day I'm back on Oahu, and I thought, oh, Driss is the fellow. I said, oh, Driss would like a peace pole. And that's how that starts. Driss has no idea what a peace pole is. His languages are Arabic, French, Spanish, and he's just starting English. So I go, peace pole. I know he didn't know what I was talking about, but I managed to get one peace pole sent to him. And that's how the Peace Pole Project started in Morocco.
Amazing.
And then Driss and I did that together, I think 3 or 4 times in different locations in Morocco, which led to all other stories. Yeah.
And remind me again about Driss.
He's the advisor to the Prime Minister.
Correct. Right. Wonderful.
And he's also the leader of this youth. I think part of his, what he was supposed to be up to is these youth programs to avoid trouble in Morocco with the young people, because at that point there weren't many job opportunities and there were a lot of poor people. Now they're connected, right? And they realize that there are no job opportunities, and that leads to uprisings in different parts of that neighborhood. And the king is trying to put the lid on that by bringing, in fact, there's one coming up pretty soon. Anyway, he wants to bring the young people together with other young people from, Africa and so on. So they make friends, so they don't get in trouble with each other.
Interesting. So you mentioned about the art and the architecture and how like it interested you. Did you get to learn any more about it while you were still in Morocco when you weren't in the meetings?
Yes and no. I did do, a little bit of shopping, a little bit. And one day I was with my driver and my translator. Lynn wasn't there. And I went to like a card shop. I love paper. I love paper, not American paper too much, but Japanese paper and Italian paper. Okay, so I'm in a card shop, and again, it's the paper thing. And I looked up and I saw this poster. Oh, it was so beautiful. Oh, it was just so beautiful. I had no idea what it was. And I said to my translator, I said, oh, can you find out how much that cost? Right? And he went over to the girl, talked to the girl in Arabic, and came back and he said, oh, it's 80 dirham. Well, 80 dirham at that point translated into $8. It's a poster. Right? And I thought, oh, that's manageable. And I said, I would like a poster, that poster. And he said, oh, no. It's too expensive. Okay, my brain is going, okay, maybe $8, 80 dirham in their world was expensive for him. I didn't know. And I didn't want to insult him, and I said, okay. The driver overheard that conversation, and the driver eventually went back and got me this poster. I love this poster. So it's calligraphy, right? And it's geometric. It's absolutely geometric, but it's the colors and I don't know what it. Well, it turns out in the Muslim faith, in the faith of Islam, there are 99 attributes of Allah. So, he's kind and he's generous and forgiving, and, you know, all of those attributes that a God would have. And they depict the 99 attributes in different forms of calligraphy. And that's what this was. Okay, I bring it back home, get it framed. It is a beauty. It's a total beauty. And I'm so happy with it. I know what it means. And so I, you know, think on it. And that. So I'm starting to have interest in this neighborhood. Now, here comes a whole other stream of stuff. There's a place in Honolulu, which is called Shangri-La. Shangri-La. And this is a home that was built by Doris Duke, like Duke University, Duke, which she was dead by now, but she has become at one point, most of her life, fascinated with Islamic art. So in this home, which is basically big cement, she covers ceilings, walls, everything with Islamic art. That's now a museum. And so when you go to Hawaii at some point, you can go to Shangri-La. How they proceed has changed over the years, but anyway, and it's so beautiful. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, I became a docent there, and it was hard work. It was not being the docent, but learning, because I had to learn about the different, you know, time zones and who was talking to who and who was friends with who and who. And then how the art was made, you know, be it tile or inlaid wood or amazing stuff. The Shangri-La has, I think it was the second largest collection of Islamic art in the United States. In the United States. So I learned my Islamic art. Now, fast forward to, I moved to Florida. Florida is kind of foreign to me, you know? And I'm being very careful about, you know, talking about religion or politics. And I'm not happy. It's cold. It's much colder here than Hawaii. And I thought, okay, go back to school, right? So I went to the Flagler website and see if they have adult school, right? Adult education. And they did have adult, they still do have adult education or lifelong learning. I don't know what it's called. And there was a class under world cultures, Islamic art and architecture. And I thought, oh, this is good. This is good. And this is the first semester I'm here. And I read a little bit about it. And the teacher, last name is Hafez, Hafez. Hafez is my favorite poet from the Islamic world. Yeah, oh, you know, okay, good. So anyway, I enrolled in that. And I think we did that one semester and then maybe COVID came. Yeah. So my Islamic teacher, who lived on St. George Street in a wonderful house. Oh my goodness. Anyway, she has my 99 attributes of Allah now.
Really?
So I gave that to her because I didn't want to end up in a thrift store and nobody knew what it was. So anyway, that chain led all over the place. I hope this is making sense.
No, it's making wonderful sense. You're doing great.
You can edit. Please edit anything that you need to, or that I need you to. Yeah. So one of the things, and I thought of this last week, there have been, I have an amazing life. when I examine the treasures in the treasure chest or I tell the story, I can start to see the connections and how amazing those connections are. How amazing, but you don't know it when you're in it. Or at least I didn't know. I didn't know when I met Driss that he was going to be a major influence in my life. I had no idea. In fact, I was even going, you just don't know. It's amazing what you don't know and then how it all weaves together.
I want to circle back to capture some years to kind of outline the timeline of the things
Okay,
we talked about
as
today.
best I can.
Circling back to Morocco, around what year was it that
I think the first peace poll we did, okay, when Lynn and I went, it was probably 2002. I think the first peace poll in Rabat was 2004. And then we did subsequent peace polls in the desert. Oh my goodness.
And then circling back to your time as a docent at the Shangri-La, around what year was that when you started working with them?
That was right until I moved. So we're ending Shangri-La in 2017. We're probably starting it in 2010, that neighborhood, maybe a little earlier.
Wonderful.
Shangri-La is amazing. Oh my goodness. Love doing
any like a memory you'd like to share from your time as a docent there?
It was almost always amazing. Shangri-La as a home is in a neighborhood. So there are restrictions about, you start out at the Honolulu Museum of Art, and then you, as a guest, you have to go on a bus, and then the bus goes to the coast. And that's where Shangri-La is. So the guests get off the bus and then meet two docents, and there's a tour this way and a tour that way. The tours were an hour and a half long. You never knew who was getting off the bus, right? If they were from Australia or they were from England or they were from down the street, you just never knew. And it was great fun. What also parallels the Shangri-La time is going back to university as a student. And this now the University of Hawaii, and learning Persian literature. So during this concurrent Shangri-La period, I'm concurrently a student at the university. And a class of us are learning Persian literature, which was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Oh, that was very fun. Anyway, back to Shangri-La. What made me think of the university is I had Iranian students on tour one day, and people from Iran sometimes say they're Persian, because Persian is the culture and belief system that precedes Iran. Okay, fine. So sometimes they consider themselves Persian and sometimes Iranians. And so I have the Persians on tour from the university, the young people. And one way, what brought you to Shangri-La today? Well, one of the belief systems in the Persian world is fate. So fate determines the behavior of characters and poems and so on. And I said to the person, oh, so what brought you to Shangri-La today? And one boy said fate. And I almost fell down. I said, oh, I didn't fall down. But it was just so Persian to say it was fate. Yeah, fate brought him to Shangri-La for me to do a tour with him. But anyway, I learned so much between the Persian literature class and Shangri-La. And we had a really good program at Shangri-La for ongoing education, which the docents loved. So they might take a piece from, they give one piece that's absolutely amazing. And, they have an expert come in and tell us, how it was made and, the materials that were used and who made it and, how Doris Duke got her hands on it. So we had a really good ongoing education program. I guess I like to learn. In fact, I know I do.
Wonderful. That's amazing to hear about. And now I'd like to learn a little more about your next docent adventures. So you moved to Florida.
Yeah, and
is that?
we have one in front of Shangri-La, whereby she learns Hawaiian history. So Hawaii, and we're previous to Shangri-La, Hawaii had a monarchy. Hawaii was independent and had a monarchy. There was push-pull from a number of countries, England being one of them, Japan a little bit, and America definitely, for ownership and control there. And this is mid 1800s. America, and it isn't the American government, it's American business people in Hawaii take the government, and then eventually annex it, and then eventually have become statehood. That was mostly for profit, making money. Where am I going with this? Okay, but during the monarchy period, things were a little different. Americans started coming in during the monarchy period, and this is an amazing thing, which I didn't know was amazing when it was happening. Okay, so there are 3 kings, subsequent kings, and I'm going to say the word Kamehameha. Sounds like a big word, it is. Kamehameha the third, Kamehameha the fourth, Kamehameha the fifth. One of my Scottish relatives was an advisor to Kamehameha the third, Kamehameha the fourth, and Kamehameha the fifth, and best friends of the Queen. She was consort, she wasn't the Queen. Her best friend was this uncle way back in Scotland who lived in Hawaii. Now, do I know this? Even when I learn it, I don't realize how amazing that is. But now I have perspective and I go, oh my God, that's amazing. Relative, Wiley, he's buried in a very sacred spot where a number of the royalty, most of the royalty is buried. He was like important. And the Queen's best friend. Okay, where I'm going with this, and you're going to have to edit this because it's getting to be chop suey. I was a docent at Queen Emma's. So learned about her, learned about this relative that I knew the name, but I never connected. Anyway, so I can tell you about the overthrow of the government and things like that. Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
then that's a whole set of treasures that are in the treasure box that I examine with 2 of them. I'm still connected to them, and we might talk about this or that, or Queen Emma's son, or some party we did or something like that. It's always the fun stuff, not the challenges. Anyway, so I hope this is making sense. I feel very like I'm talking about myself too much.
This is exactly what it's supposed to be. All right. I'm dying to know about your time in St. Augustine. So you make the move to Florida, and let's talk a little more about that.
Okay.
What prompted that transition in your life?
I know exactly. Um, okay, and we may edit out this part.
Would you like me to stop recording? Is there something?
No, you can edit it out if it, I'm not too sure. This is true, so I'm not making this up. Um, there's a couple of things. I'm at Shangri-La. I love Shangri-La. I mean, I love Shangri-La. I love the work of Shangri-La. I love the location. It's awe-inspiring. Like every time it's like, oh my God, did you see that ceiling? So it's so beautiful. I'm also at the top of my game. Do you know what I mean? Um, I'm right there. I had a friend who was at the top of his game. He was the school principal, and the school got the blue ribbon, something national. And then he moved schools. He changed schools. And I said, Dennis, why'd you do that? And he said, it's always a good idea to leave at the top. And that stuck with me. Okay, so I have that gem in my brain. And this is the second one, and I can't explain it. I was home, wonderful view, Diamond Head, everything, Punch Bowl, Putter, everything. I don't know. I haven't told many people this. My kids don't even know. I really heard a strong voice in my head saying, move to St. Augustine. And that sounds very weird and like I'm crazy. It is weird and I'm not crazy. And I sat down. I was standing up. I was like, oh my God. My son is here. So I started doing my little researchy thing. And plus, I have this need to expand, learn more, do more, experience more. And I thought, and I'm getting older, you know, so there's a number of factors playing into this one. I called my son and I said, Matt, I said, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about it. And my grandson lived here at this point. And I contacted him probably by text and said, you know, I'm thinking about this. And it was affirmative. And so the decision was made, or I made the decision. I don't know. And 6 months later, I was on the plane and then went into shock. So, yeah. Was it an easy transition? No, not at all. Not at all. It was cold. This was 2017. For some reason, the cold weather came really early, like in October. And yeah, so it wasn't an easy transition, and I hurt my back and so on. So yeah, the oldest house has worked out very well for me, so I'm happy with that. And I love where I live now. And I've adjusted pretty much to the weather. It probably took me 5 years because my body wasn't used to changes in temperature. Right? We can go up, down 20 degrees. Hawaii, you don't do that. You just go a little bit, you know, a couple few degrees. Oh my God, it's so cold. Well, it's 82. Yeah. So it's been an adjustment. I don't know how I would have done the COVID years in Hawaii. I don't know how that would have happened. I lived in a condo. You know, how do you get on an elevator? Right? Um, I don't know how that would have worked out. So Shangri-La has changed leadership over the years. Um, it's not the way it used to be. Queen Emma's has changed. It's not the way it used to be. I seem to hit things in the good years. So lucky me. And I still consider myself very fortunate, very lucky, and I'm very grateful.
Now, I'd like to ask about the oldest house now. I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So you live at the oldest house in a way.
I live on the property of.
Yes. How did that transpire?
Yeah, that again, you don't know amazing is going on when it's going on. There was a young man who had recently graduated from Flagler who was like oh, yeah. So Kevin, and he was an outstanding young man. Um, anyway, so Kevin interviewed me. So I had applied. I don't know if it was Indeed or not. I don't remember. Anyway, I had an interview, and Kevin was showing me around the property, this building, that building. And we came in the backyard, and I said, Kevin, what is that little pink house? And he said, oh, we rent that. And I had not the concept of a museum renting living space. I didn't have that concept. But my brain said I could live there. So in my head, while he's showing me this, and I'm trying to integrate new information that museums have rentals, my brain says, oh, you could live there. I didn't say that out loud. I didn't want Kevin to freak out. And then I started at being a docent and this and that. My Islam teacher, who lived on St. George, she called me and she said, that building on the property is going to be for rent again. Now, I don't get the information from anybody over here. I get it from my Islam teacher. She knew the folks that were renting this place anyway. And I said, oh my goodness. So I saw Angie and Megan, I think it was, one day, and I said, I said, that place is for rent. And I said, I really would like to look at it. And that's how it came to pass. So you just don't know. And all I am first initially is just touring the property with Kevin. I'm very grateful to live here. Very grateful. I lived on Riberia, and there was no heat. And plus, I'm having some transition issues. I'm freezing. It was all. So I had the docents I was working with, and I said, we're all going to go over there and we're going to look. And if you see anything, say something. And we checked out the heating system and the plugs and all of that. Anyway, so I've been here, I think it's 5 years now. I think it is. And Angie is excellent. She just, if the little thing goes funny, she's on it. And people seem to like to bump into my Reha. So she's on it. They get fixed. And I'm still doing the docent work. I had to stop for, I think twice I stopped because my back hurt. But I'm doing that again 2 days a week. Just lunch.
And working at the oldest house, are there any memories that come to mind of some of the tours that you've done? Any interesting people that you've met?
Oh, yeah. Um, all of it's different. So you just kind of never know what, and I work really well with the translator. That's just experience. And I love doing non-English with the translator. I work really well with translators. So, and I think for the folks that speak Spanish or French or German or Russian, they're from all over the place. Um, it's really to hear their own language, to hear the stories in their own language is highly beneficial to everyone. And plus, it's usually a family member. It's a person your age or younger who speaks both languages. And, we applaud and thank the translator at the end. Oh, our translator did so well. And the family has some pride in all of that. So that works out really well. I don't do the school groups because the masses move too quickly for me. But if there's a kid on the tour, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I can do that and keep the adults engaged and keep the kid engaged mostly. I'm pretty good at that. This sounds like my ego speaking. Do I do tours like everybody else? No, I don't. And I know that, but nobody seems to stop me, so I keep on doing it. And I do change my tours too. Yeah. And
How do you feel that your tours are different?
because I do my best to read who the guests are and kind of, I might ask them, why are you here? Or see if I can get some information about where their interest might be. I love the word bespoke. Do I do bespoke tours for every group? Probably mostly. So, look at read the group, kid, non-English, there's so many factors. Interest. You can tell when somebody's there because they want to be, or if their wife has dragged them along. That. I mean, bingo. But I tell them they usually have the best time of all. I also now incorporate the trees and the wood wide web. So the communication system of the roots of the trees with each other. Because I think that's new information that I like to share. And I also include the passion fruit vine because I love the passion fruit vine and I love the passion fruit flowers and the passion fruit. And the folks from the belt, like it would be Mexico, Hawaii, Colombia, those places, they know passion fruit and they'd like to find a connection. They might not come in looking for the connection, but when they have the connection, oh, yeah, that grew at my grandmother's house in Venezuela, then they're happy. They have that connection and that their own memory. And the water filter thing, people connect with that because the grandmother has it in Colombia or someplace like that. Specifically, I don't know. I've had this happen, and I think it's funny, but it's not an intentional thing. Okay, a girl may come in, a young girl like you, and she has like fancy earrings on. Let's say she has fancy earrings on. And I don't want the earrings. Trust me, I do not want the earrings, but I don't say that to her. But she's gotten up and she's put fancy earrings on, maybe some eye makeup or whatever. And, oh, wow, look at your earrings. They're so beautiful. I don't want those earrings. I really don't. I just want her to know that I appreciate them without going into all the detail. I've had two come back and give me what I complimented them on. And that's kind of weird. One girl, I have it over here. It's a baseball cap that says pure love or something. And she had this baseball cap on. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, your baseball cap is so wonderful. She drove back from Miami with a baseball cap to match hers. Yeah. So that, and it's not about me getting stuff. It's just, you know, the funny things that happen that you don't know are going to happen. And I have a pair of owl earrings, which I really don't want, but you know, oh, look at your earrings. They're so cute. Look at the turquoise. And again, it's not my intention to get a hold of them because I don't need something at this point. So anyway, those are some things that have happened. I haven't had any difficulty. I had a misread once. There were 3 people on tour, husband, wife, sister of wife. And wife was so unhappy. Oh my goodness. And as I circled by the well, I thought, I'm going to get this lady to smile somehow. And one thing led to another, and the sister and the husband went upstairs, and we stayed downstairs. And she had cancer. And she started telling me about her cancer treatment or whatever. And I had misread her. You know, maybe she was in pain, maybe she was worried about her. So you don't know at the same time you do know. So I'm not doing that on crabby people because people have their struggles. So that's neither here nor there. That's what I've learned at the oldest house. Yeah. I like telling the stories. I don't know how much is retained. I don't know if I want that in the interview either. I don't know how much. I know what they retain is how they feel. I know that. So when they leave, they're happy, sad, in the middle. They know how they feel. They might not remember anything else. And so again, it's creating the memory.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. But the docents, we're pretty stabilized at the moment. And I think everybody's happy. There's a new person who's doing the counting and all of that fun stuff. And she's doing a very, very good job. She's on top of things. She sees things and she just fixes them, which is lovely. And there's somebody, and they just put a new display in. So I think you're going to the orthodontist next week.
Yes.
You don't have to put that in the interview. But there's a new display upstairs in Tovar. And I hear it's very good. I'm going to go look at it tomorrow.
Awesome. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I feel that you have taken me through the narrative of your life so well that I barely had to ask any questions. You answered so many of the questions that I had.
Okay. You can extrapolate. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And I really appreciate being able to talk with you. But since most of pretty much all of my questions have been answered, I would just like to turn it over to you to say, is there anything else you would want to add? Any other things that you know?
As long as you are satisfied, as long as you get a good grade. And if you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. With my friends, from Queen Emma's or Shangri-La or one of those places, or government, we do examine these treasures. I don't think I talk about them here to people I don't know or people I do know. They're a little far-fetched. And people are more interested in their own stories. That makes sense?
That makes sense.
So giving people an opportunity to tell their story seems to be more important to me at this point, even though today is an exception, because I'm talking about me. But people, the guests, they want to tell you that grandma had a chair like this, or this reminds them of grandma's house in Colombia, or, you know, this they had in northern Spain. They want to tell you their story, and I do my best to allow that, not allow that, that doesn't sound nice, but to facilitate that. I sound like a better person than I am. Anyway, because of my son and such, he calls me every morning at 10 o'clock, and it's almost 10 o'clock here. And I like to be available to him. He calls me at 5 o'clock too.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. So
okay.
Before being able to talk with me today.
Well, thank you. I hope I didn't overwhelm you or underwhelm you. Oh, I'm overwhelmed and I'm underwhelmed.